Hey guys, Mike Sharus here at the Antler Collector, and I'm going to tell you a quick story about the first set of shed antlers that I discovered off of the border brute buck. This happened around 2005. So I had been buying antlers over in Ohio, and I get a call from the guy that killed the deer, Alan Kane. And we had talked prior several times, and I always told him, I said, if you ever turn up any sheds off of these, let me know. I'd make it right with you. So I'm over in Ohio, and he calls me. He says, "Hey," he said, "you better get your butt up here in a couple days. Uh, I saw another antler off this deer." And I'm thinking, oh, you got to be kidding me. The only set that I had at the time was the big set that was in the 240s. The first big set known as the border brute. So I said, I'm actually over in Ohio right now, and I said, on my way back through, I could swing by if you can make this happen. And he said, I can make this happen. He said, I'll give him a call and tell him that, the guy with the shed to get up here. I said, who is it? He said, it was a local farmer. He said, I happened to be over there, and he said, he showed me an antler he had sitting up on the mantle. He said, it's a huge shed. He said, it's a giant 4-point. And I was like, wow, okay. I said, are you sure it's that deer, a 4-point? Because this deer was always a 5x5. Well, as far as we knew. He said, yeah. He said, you just be here if you can. I'm going to set it up to be here between 6 and 7. And I said, well, I'm going to be coming back through tomorrow. He said, well, let me find out. I'll give you a call. So he calls me 30 minutes later, and he said, you better get here. He said, the guy's going to be here with the shed. I said, okay. So, man, you talk about I couldn't wait to get back. I'm like, come on, this is unbelievable. He didn't have a picture of it. Like I said, this is around 2005, so phones were a little iffy back then. It was pretty much just flip phones. I get there, knock on the door the next day around 6:37 and even. Alan comes to the door. He's like, come on in. So I go in the house, and I'm looking at his deer. He had it mounted on the wall, and I was sitting there looking at it. He killed it. It would have been in the fall of 2005. So this would have been 2006 actually, not 2005. So I'm looking at his deer, and we're talking about it with them, and I actually had took along when I went to Ohio a replica of the border brute big set that I had mounted on a skull. And I went out and grabbed it because I wanted to look at it next to his deer and just see how that looked. And I was sitting there looking at it, and I'm on the floor of his house in his living room. And I hear, and he yells, come on in! So the guy comes in, and it wasn't the guy that he originally talked to. It was his brother, and he had another set off of this deer. Are you serious? He comes walking in with, I'm like, holy cow. And he's like, Alan, he said, this is, I get the names confused here. There's Jim and Jeff, I believe it was Jeff or Jim, I can't remember. I think it was Jim actually. So Jim had found the set. The year, it would be the 2 years before the big set that I had. He's walking in with these. I'm like, holy cow, I didn't know it was a set. And Alan goes, that ain't the ones I saw, or the one I saw. He's like, no, that's my brother. And then the Jim guy says, no, that's Jeff, my brother. He'll be bringing the other one. I'm like, you trying to tell me you guys got more antler off this deer? And he's like, yeah. He said, I found a set the year before Jeff did. And I'm like, oh my goodness. All of a sudden, come on in. And here comes, Jeff with this antler. Oh my God. He was carrying this 4-point shed with the 18-inch G2. He walked in that door, and I'm sitting on the floor, and I look at that thing. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. Saying to myself, this is unbelievable. It was the tallest tine I'd ever seen in my life. The G2 was 18. The G3 was 15.5, 15.6. Unbelievable. But I'm going to get off of those because I'll be doing those in another video. I ended up talking to those guys that night. I couldn't get a deal done on any of the antlers, which is okay, but don't get me wrong, it was heart-wrenching. I leave there, and I go to the local gas station just up the road. This is in north of Kansas City, around western Missouri. I go to this gas station. I'm fueling up. I'm in my old GMC Chevy. Wasn't too old at the time. It was a year old. And I go inside, and I'm coming back out, and this guy runs up to me. And he says, "Hey, you buy antlers?" And I'm like, "I do." He's like, "Can you give me like 10 minutes? I'll be right back. I want to show you something." I said, "Sure." So I just pulled off to the side after fueling up and sitting there. And this guy comes pulling in and pulls right up next to me. And he reaches over and grabs a set of antlers. These. Right here. I'm like, as soon as I saw it, I said, "You got to be kidding me." He's like, "No, what's up?" He goes, "Would you have interest in them?" I said, "I absolutely would." I reached in the back and grabbed the big replica set I had of the Border Brute. I said, "Listen, man, this is why I'm up here." I said, "I bet I know roughly right where you live." And I told him. He's like, "How did you know that?" I said, "This is the deer. The replica is this same deer." I said, "I bet you found these 2002-ish. He's like, "That's exactly right, about 3 years ago." I'm like, "Oh my God." He said, I looked out in my yard, and he said, I don't remember which one it was. Honestly, I think it was this one. He said, "I found one of the antlers in my yard." And he said, "I looked out and here this one laid in the green weed." I think it was this one, because if I remember right, this one had some green weed on it. And he said, "I just went out there and picked it up and didn't think nothing of it." So I couldn't believe it. What are the chances of being on a trip, the guy that killed the deer calls me, he finds out that there's a single. He didn't even know about the set. I'm at his house, the guy shows up with a set, then the guy shows up with the biggest 4-point single I've ever seen in my life. And then I leave there empty-handed and go to the gas station and turn up another set off the deer. I mean, you talk about history. That's amazing. Like, so rare, for all that to come together in a timely fashion. And I ended up making him an offer right there on the spot, and he said, absolutely. So I got the antlers, and pretty much the rest is history. But unbelievable how these just turned up just from simply pulling into a gas station and the guy seeing the antler on my truck, buy antlers, and it led to another set off the Border Brute, which is the first set I've got. They gross around the 200 mark. Tallest tine is over 15. Just amazing deer overall. These aren't, they're big, I guess, to a lot of people. They're big, if I killed the deer, that'd be a heck of a deer right here even. But it would be sad to kill this deer now knowing what he did. You guys have a great evening. We'll talk to you in the next one. Stay tuned.